Today, we are joined by the former host of Zo Nation on PJTV, the current host of The Zoloft, the current drummer for 20 Pound Sledge, and author of Pulitzer Prize-winning political treatise, Weapon of Ass Destruction, the one and only Zo Rachel. We will analyze why the left can't take a joke. Then, Ariel Davidson and Jacob Airy join the panel of deplorables. We'll discuss the convenient changes to hysterical global warming predictions, the Google Memo guy's admiration for KKK titles, and Jimmy Kimmel's latest humorless political rant. His latest one, not the one from yesterday, the new one. And finally, all of your questions will be answered in the mailbag. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. Before we get into it with Zo, we have to just set all of this up. Yesterday, we played Kimmel, and Kimmel was whining about some political nonsense. So he's back at it again today. This is his latest threat to pound the Fox and Friends co-host, Brian Kilmeade. Let's show it.
This has been the show. He follows me on Twitter. He asked me to write a blurb for his book, which I did. He calls my agent looking for projects. He's dying to be a member of the Hollywood elite. The only reason he's not a member of the Hollywood elite is because nobody will hire him to be one. And you know, the reason I'm talking about this is because my son had an open heart surgery and has to have 2 more. And because of that, I learned that there are kids with no insurance in the same situation. I don't get anything out of this, Brian, you phony little creep. Oh, I'll pound you when I see you. That is my blurb.
What did I watch? What am I watching? I thought this was supposed to be a comedy show. It is funny, I guess. It's funny to laugh at him rather than with Jimmy Kimmel. We are so lucky to have Zo Rachel here today. Zo, first question. Why has the left lost its sense of humor?
You know, there was a time when they were funny, huh? There was I don't
sort of, maybe, right?
Well, no. I mean, there was a time. I mean, we had TV shows. You know, it sucks when you find out that these people that you thought were so funny. You know, when we were kids, we sneak downstairs, in the basement or something, and we watch their shows. And these guys are hilarious. And then you get older and you find out what their views are. And it's such a disappointment. It's a real letdown, man.
Yeah, it's like, why is the host of The Man Show with the juggies who just like shotguns beers on camera, why is he lecturing me about healthcare
And that's
policy?
another thing. They're supposed to be like, I guess that's their idea of being pro-women while they have these chauvinistic shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have lost their sense of humor, whatever that was. And why that is, I think possibly it's because they want to be seen as something deeper than comedians, all the while hiding behind being a comedian. Because when they get called out for trying to make their deep political statement, and it backlashes on, it's like, well, I'm just a comedian. You guys should have a sense of humor.
It's the Jon Stewart thing, right? I'm an entertainer. Clown nose on, clown nose off. You want to have your cake and eat it too.
That's it.
That is right. But you know what's weird? Because at first I thought the reason they're losing their minds and they're not making jokes anymore is because they hate Trump. Trump's been the big change. But they were kind of funny under Bush. There was Jon Stewart. There was Colbert. They were both pretty funny. So what is it about Trump? It's not just any Republican, right?
Well, I guess Trump is funny without even trying, because it's with Trump, he doesn't. It's not like he really says much. It's not like he says anything really deep.
Yeah.
Not trying to come down on Trump, but it's
a
not saying
diplomatic
that
way
he's
to put
not
it. Yeah.
able to. It's just he just does it.
Yeah.
And it causes them to start biting or chomping and stuff like that to try to get under his skin. But it's backfiring, and it's causing them to get under their own skin as their head goes up their own. Never mind.
Yeah, there's a lot going on anatomically. You're right though. Well, you make the point about Trump's just not taking it, but he is funny himself.
Yeah.
So he'll say, in that debate, you remember that debate with Megyn Kelly, and she says, "You've said this about women, and you've said this and this and this about women," and he just leans in and he says, "Only Rosie O'Donnell." And that is this great punchline. And I don't know, maybe it's they're not used to a guy, and he's one of them, right? He is a Hollywood elite. He's been a celebrity forever.
Right.
He was sort of a Democrat, and so he's funny, and they can't take it. They don't know how to react when someone can throw it back just as well as they can throw it. But it's amazing too. I mean, you've been around Hollywood a very long time. The way that Kimmel talks about, he says, Brian Kilmeade wants to be in the Hollywood elite. He wants to be, but he's a loser because he's not in the Hollywood elite.
Well, the funny thing he said was that they won't hire him. It's like, I didn't know that you got hired to be. It's like, is that like on an application, not a job description? Yeah. I'm here for the job to be a Hollywood elite. I didn't know that's how it worked.
On Monster.com, I said, like, yeah, the ideal job would be Hollywood elite. My qualifications, I'm divorced multiple times and I do a lot of drugs. Will that get me in? I don't know. Maybe.
That would look good on a resume for Hollywood elite. And it's, I just, they won't admit that, hey, maybe he's just not willing to do the brown nosing that they did to get to where they are, and just, really kissing the behinds of the right people to get to where they are.
And it is, so you've been in Hollywood a long time, and you basically you were at the forefront of conservative new media. Right, you're doing videos on like MySpace. You're completely cutting edge in conservative commentary, and then Breitbart discovered you. Andrew Breitbart, some of the other people, Bill Whittle, all those guys discover you.
I guess so, man. Because MySpace. Well, that's going back. That's in the time machine right there.
Yeah, you were doing videos on like telegraphs. You were doing No, but you were right at the beginning of this conservative internet culture. That's where you are.
Yeah. Well, I was doing MySpace. That was like 2007. And, it started to take off a bit. And then I didn't even know about YouTube. That's how under a rock I was. And somebody said, you should put this stuff up on YouTube. And when I did, they started going viral. And, I got contacted by some people. Long story short, I ended up on PJTV. So I was I guess one of those lonely people in front of my brick wall, doing this, rant from a conservative angle, and it was well received at the time.
And those guys, Andrew Breitbart, was kind of at the forefront of all of that, but PJTV, Roger Simon, Bill Whittle, all those guys were doing something completely new. The conservatives had been shut out of the media, shut out of the mainstream comedy, politics, entertainment culture, and then this internet exuberance happens, and you break through. How is it different today than it was in 2007?
Well, it's different today because I guess as I call them, the liberal internet overlords, who basically facilitated these platforms, for us to do the.
You're talking about YouTube,
like
Google.
YouTube, yeah, man. When they realized that our voice was that potent, what changed is that they started putting limits on it. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I've kind of been saying for a while, it's like, I don't think we should be dependent on their platforms that much, or as much as we are. I think we need to create something competitive where we can have our own. So in case, they decide to, drop the curtain on us, we have, some recourse. And right now, we're feeling the effects of that.
And, we have all the time on Ali Stuckey, Roman Millennial, Fleckus Talks, all these big right-wing YouTubers, Crowder, Not Gay Jared, and their revenues are being cut by 60, 70%. Our revenues have been cut dramatically. So they're clearly going after that. The funny thing I was struck with, I was looking at some of your early videos today. This is a video from 2010 from Zonation.
Oh, boy.
Man, this is weird. Illegal immigrants and their so-called sympathizers believe they're being mistreated by our American government. But wait, isn't it the government of the country you left the one that mistreats you? Yeah, I believe it is. Why don't you protest that government? The government of your country of origin treats its citizens like crap, and you take it out on us. And a lot of what that is catharsis. Your life sucks. And trust me, you don't have to be poor for your life to suck. But your life sucks, and this is an event for you to vent your frustration and look for any excuse to whine about how much your butt hurts and drag as many people as you can into your misery. You got these angry protesters running around with their hoodies on, look like a bunch of little Unabombers acting a straight fool because they reckon if they throw enough of a hissy fit, they'll get their way.
That video was made 7 years ago. That could have been made 7 hours ago. That is describing exactly what is the main story in the news right now. Yeah. Does anything change? Does anything ever change in politics?
No. No, it doesn't. And that's the thing, man. This has been going on since God knows when, and it gets recycled. And we know how, liberals love recycling, and that's exactly what's happened. It's just recycled over and over again.
This is the first time that I think I'd be willing to recycle, is to pull back some of these videos. So where's it going to head? Where's it? I mean, right now you're drummer for 20 Pound Sledge. You're still putting out videos, even though YouTube's trying to just squeeze them and crush them as much as they can.
Yeah.
Where does it head? The conservative movement, the conservative entertainment movement, you know, these satirical videos that come out. What's the future look like for it? Or are we going to be just totally squeezed out and have to come up with our own platform?
Well, I think it's definitely going to have. It's going to take another platform. It's going to take being independent, you know, with our work, and it's going to take that support, man. It's you know, the idea of I'm looking at what the liberals have done. You know, this is what they do, and this is what they still do to promote their ideology. They're in everything, man. They're in everything, and conservatives really have to learn how to compete in that arena. Support is, you know, we're so big on defense. You know, we want, you know, we're pro-defense. So, well, you're going to need a defense mechanism in the cultural arena, too.
Not just in the military war, in the cultural war, too.
Exactly. If you want to sustain political conservative representation, well, you're going to have cultural representation to be underneath that, to, you know, for them to consent. You know, if we're, you know, governed by our consent, well, you're going to have a culture that consents to that. But we don't have that.
And what is, you're Christian, you obviously play Christian music, Christianity is in a lot of your videos. What is conservatism to you?
Conservatism to me is you have to understand that you can't have your freedom at the forced expense of somebody else. When you recognize what the Constitution is and what laws it recognizes, not what laws it creates that facilitates the rights of man, but the laws that it recognizes given by our Creator. When you recognize that and say that, okay, there's a balance of freedom here. You're free to do this. Now, I know that a lot of libertarians like really appreciate this. Yeah, that's right. But no, it's conservatism, because you have this set of freedom that goes against this set of freedom, and it has to balance. So say, for instance, like, and libertarians are going to get mad at me, but I have to give this example. Like they'll say, you know, what a woman does with her body should be her business. Yeah. Right. This is, you know, and the government shouldn't have any say. But here's the thing. That woman's right to do that is affecting someone else's right.
What, I thought the baby was just like a little scab or something. It was like a little piece of tissue that was attached to the woman. Yeah,
but, you know, even a lot of libertarians will say that, look, I personally am not pro-abortion, but what a person does. But the thing is, you can't say that without, the only reason why you would say that is recognizing the personhood of the kid. It's the only reason why you would say that.
Whenever I hear that, this is what I hear. I hear, well, I would never kill my beautiful little precious child, but I would love all of those poor people to get rid of theirs so I don't need to pay for their welfare. That's what I hear every time they say that argument. Because you have to ask, well, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you get that abortion?
Exactly. And then once you go down that road, if you feel like you're entitled to kill a kid, you're going to feel entitled for somebody else to pay for it. So it's a self-eating snake, and it doesn't really follow to conclusion. That's why I say you have a conservative interpretation of the Constitution that recognizes this balance of rights.
And that creator, too.
Exactly. You know, and this isn't a man-made ordinance. You have to have the acknowledgement that we're endowed with this, or this is an inherent right that's put there by our Creator. So
I totally buy it. Let's get some other views on what conservatism is. We have Ariel Davidson coming to us from Skype from the Hoover Institution, and the Daily Wire's very own Jacob Arias joining on the couch. You are so lucky, Jacob. You get to sit next to royalty like this in studio. Ariel's coming to us from the Hoover Institution. What do you think? Yes. Does Zoe make the right point? I want these two questions. One, why is the left so unfunny? And what is conservatism to you?
Well, why is the left so unfunny? Well, I think it really comes down to the fact that victimhood is now the most celebrated virtue on the left end of the spectrum. So they've prioritized not offending anyone as the ultimate good. But in the same token, being a person who is offended is also seen as an ultimate good. And so comedy is inherently, I think, politically incorrect. And so they're definitely going to butt heads in terms of what comedy's objectives are and what the left's ultimate objectives are. You know, if we look back at comedians like John Cleese, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, all of these gentlemen won't perform on college campuses anymore. They explicitly won't, because they think that college campuses have become too conservative, and not too conservative in the sense that everyone's voting Republican. They're too conservative in the sense of what's allowable and what's not allowable. Conservatism, to me, in general, I think that we go back to the founding fathers and their principles. We go back to Aristotelian views and John Locke. I look at conservatism from the mindset of your rights do not come from the government, they come from God. And they are inherent to you, and they're not something gifted by daddy government. And this is something that, you know, when we talk about freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, these are not gifts that the government bequeaths upon us. These are things that we inherently have as human beings. The right to life being a huge one that we just talked about. So conservatism to me is really, you know, government is a social compact agreement that we enter into as individuals. We give up a little bit of power over ourselves, but in general, you know, I think restoring the power of the individual, I think, is what should be the objective of the conservative movement moving forward.
Absolutely, and I think that's why those two questions are pretty related. What is conservatism, and why has the left lost its sense of humor? I think there is, in comedy, there's an ultimately conservative base to it. Even though a lot of comedians are left-wing, they'll vote for Democrats, though some of the greatest do not. The greatest comedian of the 20th century, Bob Hope, was a Republican. The greatest living comedian right now is Norm Macdonald. Avoids political classification, but the guy's at least not a liberal Democrat. So
Ron White, I love him.
Ron White is great. Yeah, I mean, there are a number.
He's wonderful, yeah.
And the reason I think is that the conservative view of the world is non-ideological. It kind of accepts the world for what it is. It accepts the tragic fact of life. It accepts our fallen nature as people, and then it makes jokes about that. It subverts your expectation to have a comedic ending. But with people who are utopian, or with people who are constantly idealistic or deeply ideological, you can't make a joke about that. They delve so far into the absurd, so far away from what we know is our lived experience of the world, that you can't laugh at it. There's no standard against which to laugh.
Well, there's also this belief that if you're making a joke about something, that you're inherently degrading it. And the left has sort of ascribed to this idea of universal values, that everything is equal, just different. And so if you're inherently making fun of something or poking fun at it, you're degrading it, and thereby saying one culture, belief system, practice is better than the other, and that's a big no-no in terms of leftist logic. So I think it kind of circles back to this idea of universal values, which is a very popular notion on the left, and actually within sort of the neoconservative movement as well, I'd say too.
But that's a standard liberals don't stick to, though.
Yeah.
You know, they you know, as the saying goes, if liberals didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. You know? And as far as conservatives go, you know, I don't think we're as opportunistic as people try to make us out to be, and looking to try to, because if we were, we would have a smorgasbord of parody and lampooning because that's what they give us all day long. They give us stuff to joke about all day long, and it's almost tragic that there isn't like something to just constantly. We should have just like an army, a legion of people, you know, making fun of these people. And you're on the front lines because you're doing a great job of it. It's like,
thanks.
But we need more. See, you're too unique for your own good, man. You know, but we need more of this. You know.
Get out of here. This is, you know, usually I only bring on the all-female panels of these beautiful women to come on every single day. But it's nice every once in a while to get some guys on to finally give me a compliment. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it, brother. Yeah. See that game the other day? All right.
We need to get to the very important news. This actually is great news today. According to courts, as of April 2017, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's carbon budget for keeping temperature rise below 1.5 degrees centigrade was approximately 160 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide. Now, a new study published in Nature Geoscience seems to have changed the game. It suggests that the 1.5 degrees centigrade carbon budget may now be closer to 800 billion metric tons. That would buy the world as much as 20 years at current emissions levels. All of that summed up means that the Paris Climate Accord was sold to us, that we must sign it now. If we wait even 1 single minute, the entire world will explode. Now is the time. We're the ones we've been waiting for. Then Trump says no. He says, sorry, too bad. And now they say, well, okay, we have a little bit more time, but you really have to do it now. Now is the time. Forget what we said before. This is the real one. Jacob, that is pretty convenient. Everybody says that we have to sign on to that accord, and now they've seemed to move the needle. Yeah. Is that what they're doing? Is this just absolutely moving goalposts, completely cynical, or are they really just confused about the science?
I honestly think they're just moving goalposts. They're every time they set something up, it either doesn't happen or it's an anecdotal event. And so they move it back every so often. They do this every 5 years. I was reading somewhere that I believe it was in The Guardian. They said we really need to talk about global warming because of this new science. And I think Leonardo DiCaprio donated $20 million to fund some research, and it's like, what a waste of money. You know, give us a good movie you could use that $20 million for. But I guarantee you, 20 years down the road, when your show enters its 20th season, the three of us will have this conversation, and you'll be asking, are they going to move the goalpost again? And I'll just repeat this over and over again.
Well, I guess the rapture is going to happen on Monday, as the Christian numerologists predict. But if not for that, yeah, I don't think global warming would be the thing to take us down. Ariel, from this same article, from this same report, they say that the range of prediction on how much carbon dioxide will be the threshold is between negative 200 billion tons and positive 1,000 billion tons. That is a pretty wide range. Isn't that the point?
Range.
Aren't they undergirding their own point that perhaps the chaotic systems and complex systems like the climate are not predictable 100 or 200 or 500 years in the future?
Absolutely. I think what it comes down to is that this study is pretty validating for climate skeptics. And when I say climate skeptics, I'm not saying that people don't think the environment goes through some sort of cyclical changes. I agree with that. That's a given. But I do think we need to take a hard look at the science that's being used. And clearly, if this study is coming out and it's questioning the sort of level or pace of warming that the Earth is going through, then maybe we should be sitting down and pausing, especially if we're making tremendous decisions about our own economy and the global economy in general based off of these scientific studies.
Wait, but hold on. You're telling me that just because all the models are constantly getting it wrong and they're constantly changing, we shouldn't destroy the entire global economy for them?
No, we probably need to sit down and think long and hard about it. And that's something that's not really done because people sort of, they say if you at all are questioning the science, if you at all are questioning the science, then you are an idiot, you're a bigot, you're closed-minded, you're willing to destroy the earth. No, I just want to have a frank and honest conversation about, what kind of regulations are we putting in place and are they actually going to be effective at what we're trying to do? And furthermore, what is it that we're trying to do, right? I mean, what is the impact of mankind on the climate? Do we really know? Is that something that is quantifiable?
But Ariel, you certainly would agree that if you don't get down on your knees and worship the science, then you are a sinner damned to hell, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, all right. I'm glad we can have a reasonable discussion.
It's Rosh Hashanah, so I can atone for, I can ask for forgiveness from
You better get to that atoning, my dear. So,
yeah,
how long before the left changes its model again? Would you say like 15 minutes or a day or two?
I think that's a good measure right there, man. That's a good measure. And it all sounds like 800 billion metric tons of crap. It's heavy, man. It's like there's 800 billion metric tons of crap holding us together right now. And and I like watching the Science Channel, and I dig. You want to talk about people who contradict themselves, oh, the Bible contradicts it. No, the Science Channel contradicts itself. Now, their whole thing is that they want to colonize Mars, right? But they say that Mars has gone through global warming. And I'm like, how? It's like, are we so evil that we caused global warming on Mars before we even started colonizing it? We
are worse than I thought. We are worse than I thought.
It's almost like that person's like, oh, I gained 10 pounds just thinking about pie. It's like, dude, did we cause global warming? They're just thinking about terraforming?
Yeah, no, Mars gained 800 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide, just us thinking about it. Yeah, absolutely right. Well, I know you all want to hear the most important news, which is Google memo writer James Damore's comments about the KKK. You want more Ariel. You want more Jacob Airy, maybe. You definitely want more Zoe Rachel, but you can't get it unless you go to dailywire.com right now. You got to go. We thank you, all of the current subscribers, and you can go over and watch the rest of the show. But if you're on Facebook and YouTube, you're on the fence, you say, I don't know if I want to subscribe. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. I guess it's not that much. But what do I get? Well, you get me. Okay. You get the Andrew Klavan Show. Yeah, you get the Ben Shapiro Show. Fine. This is what you get, the Leftist Tears Tumbler. This is the most beautiful vessel for leftist tears in the entire country. We have a Jimmy Kimmel vintage right now that we're offering in this. You can serve Jimmy Kimmel's tears hot or cold always salty and delicious, and it's indestructible. It's made out of crushed up Steven Crowder mugs, so we've boiled them down to their essence. Good luck trying to destroy this thing. Go over there right now, dailywire.com. We'll be right back.